For decades, the world knew her as the graceful, ethereal dance partner of Fred Astaire. A vision in silk and feathers, floating across the silver screen, the very picture of Hollywood glamour. But in the private pages of her autobiography, published just a few years before her death, Ginger Rogers revealed a much darker truth, a truth about the poisonous snake in Hollywood who, in her words, tried to destroy her. This isn't the story you think you know. This is a story of profound betrayal, of insidious attacks that targeted her character, her career, and her very identity. In her own words, she finally exposed the toxic underbelly of the dream factory, a world where the brightest stars often cast the darkest shadows. The story she kept secret for decades is a shocking revelation of the battles she fought when the camera stopped rolling. Who was this rival? What did they do that was so venomous? And why did Ginger Rogers wait a lifetime to tell the world? The answers are more complex and far more shocking than you can imagine. To really get how deep the betrayal cut, you have to see just how high Ginger Rogers had climbed. In the bleak, gray world of the Great Depression, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire were a vibrant splash of technicolor dreams. They were pure escapism. When they danced, the world forgot its troubles. Their films for RKO Pictures weren't just movies, they were national events. Pictures like Top Hat and Swing Time offered a fantasy of Art Deco ballrooms, champagne, and romance that could conquer anything with a perfect dance number, and at the heart of it all was Ginger. She wasn't just Fred's partner, she was his perfect counterpart. One critic famously noted that he gave her class, and she gave him sex appeal. She was the one you could relate to, the girl with the sparkling, wisecracking wit who could trade barbs as easily as she could nail a complex dance step. She made the impossible look easy. She made the fantasy feel real. The famous quote that she did everything he did, backwards and in high heels, isn't just a clever line, it's the perfect metaphor for her entire career. Born Virginia Catherine McMath in Independence, Missouri, she was a trooper from day one. Her childhood was rocky, and she was even kidnapped twice by her own father after her parents' divorce. It was her mother, Lela Rogers, a true force of nature, who gave Ginger the stability and ambition that shot her to stardom. Lela wasn't just a mom, she was a journalist, a screenwriter, a Marine, and the single most important architect of Ginger's career. She fought for her daughter, managed her contracts, and taught her to know her own worth. By 19, Ginger was a Broadway sensation. Hollywood came calling, and soon she landed at RKO Pictures. It was there, in the 1933 film Flying Down to Rio, that she was paired with a vaudeville dancer named Fred Astaire. They weren't even the studio knew they'd struck gold, and the most famous dancing duo in history was born. The public saw seamless perfection. They saw swirling gowns and joyful smiles. What they didn't see was the grueling work. The 18-hour rehearsal days. The foot-numbing, muscle-aching repetition. Fred Astaire was a legendary perfectionist, and he once said that every single one of his female partners cried during their rehearsals. All of them, he said, except Ginger. No, Ginger never cried. While filming one of their most famous routines in Swing Time, the work was so punishing that her feet were raw and bleeding. Her white dancing shoes were literally stained red with her own blood. But she refused to stop, pushing through the pain until the take was absolutely perfect. This was the image, the tough, professional, unsinkable Ginger Rogers. She was the golden girl of RKO, the studio's most valuable asset, a beacon of light for a generation lost in the dark. But behind this pristine public facade, a war was brewing. A war fought not on the dance floor, but in back offices, in tabloids, and in whispers that echoed through Hollywood. Ginger was smiling for the cameras, but she was surrounded by enemies. And in her memoir, she finally named them. Hollywood's golden age was like the deep ocean, beautiful on the surface, but filled with predators in the dark. For a star like Ginger Rogers, survival meant navigating those treacherous waters. In her 1991 autobiography, Ginger, My Story, she finally drew a map of the dangers she faced, setting the record straight after a lifetime of what she called pernicious rumors. She told stories that painted a vivid picture of a career spent battling venomous forces from all sides. The most powerful and persistent snake Ginger faced was the very system that created her, RKO Pictures. In the 1930s, studios weren't just employers, they were feudal lords. They owned stars under ironclad contracts, dictating their roles, salaries, public image, and even their love lives. Ginger Rogers, alongside Fred Astaire, was RKO's biggest moneymaker, literally keeping the studio from going bankrupt. You'd think they'd be grateful. They weren't. The first strike was financial. And it was a constant, grating insult. Despite being one half of a world-famous duo, Ginger was paid a fraction of her male co-star's salary. While Fred Astaire commanded a handsome salary plus 10% of the film's profits, Ginger got a flat, much lower rate. She was often paid less than the supporting actors in her own movies. Think about that. The woman whose face sold the tickets was treated as a secondary part by the men in the front office, but Ginger, guided by her formidable mother Lela, refused to accept it. She became one of the first female stars to consistently fight for equal pay. This caused immense. Just a dancer. She was an actress, and a damn good one. She craved dramatic roles, but RKO, addicted to the Astaire Rogers box office gold, kept trying to typecast her. She had to fight tooth and nail for every non-musical role she got. The ultimate battle came with the 1940 film Kitty Foyle, a gritty drama about a working-class woman facing an out-of-wedlock pregnancy. When Ginger first read the novel, she was appalled, but her mother Lela convinced her it was the role of a lifetime. Ginger fought for the part and poured her soul into it. Her performance was a revelation. It earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress, finally proving to the world what she knew all along: she was a serious dramatic force. But this was a victory won in spite of the studio, not because of it. If the studio was a constant pressure, the next snake struck with a sharp, public bite. Its name was Sylvia of Hollywood, a popular radio personality and fitness guru. In 1934, Sylvia broadcast what she claimed was an interview with Ginger Rogers. There was just one problem: it was a complete fake. Ginger was nowhere near the radio station. The entire segment was a lie. For an actress whose image was fiercely protected, this was a massive violation. Many stars might have let it slide, fearing a public fight. Not Ginger. Outraged, she sued Sylvia of Hollywood for defamation, demanding an astronomical $100,000 in damages. The case was eventually settled out of court, with Ginger victorious. She had faced down the snake of public betrayal and won. Ginger's fight against the studio system and public figures who tried to exploit her is a story of incredible resilience. It's a side of old Hollywood we rarely get to see. If you're finding this hidden history fascinating, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We have so many more untold stories to share. Now, back to the final, and most personal, Snake in Ginger's Garden. The story everyone waits for in a Hollywood memoir is the onset feud. The most persistent whispers around Ginger concerned her relationship with another RKO titan, Katharine Hepburn. When they were cast together in the 1937 classic stage Door, the press predicted a clash of epic proportions. Here were two of RKO's most powerful, headstrong actresses, both known for their fierce independence. The gossip column salivated at the prospect of a catfight. For decades, a particularly nasty story circulated about the two of them. It claimed that Hepburn, in a fit of pique, deliberately poured water on Ginger's brand new mink coat, callously remarking something like, "If it's real mink, it won't shrink." It's a story that seems to perfectly capture a bitter rivalry. For years, many believed Ginger had dismissed these stories as simple rumors, but in her final confession, Ginger didn't just fail to debunk the rumors. She confirmed the hostility. The bad blood started even before stage Door. She once tested for a role in Hepburn's film Mary of Scotland in disguise, trying to get a fair shot. Hepburn saw right through it, and as Ginger remembered it, kicked me in the shins, and snarled, "You, expletive deleted. Who do you think you are fooling?" Ginger wrote that during the filming of stage Door, she perceived nothing but contempt and ridicule from Hepburn and steered clear of her, not trusting what she might do. Far from being just a professional rivalry, Ginger painted a picture of open hostility. And as for that mink coat? Ginger confirmed an incident happened, solidifying the image of a toxic relationship. So, was there a poisonous snake in Ginger's story? Absolutely. And in the pages of her own book, Ginger Rogers finally gave that snake a name. Katharine Hepburn. Fighting a war on so many fronts takes a toll. The constant battles with studio executives, legal fights, and struggles for respect left deep scars on Ginger's career and personal life. The fallout from being labeled difficult was perhaps the most insidious poison of all. In old Hollywood, difficult was a code word. For a man, it meant he was an artist. For a woman, it meant she was a problem. It was a label used to punish women who dared to demand their worth. But Ginger knew her value. She knew her name on a marquee meant box office success. Demanding that her salary reflect that wasn't being difficult, it was being a smart businesswoman. But in the 1930s and 40s, a smart businesswoman was often seen as a threat. This reputation followed her, making every negotiation a struggle. The stress was immense. She sought refuge in her private life, building a home with a soda fountain instead of a bar. She was a devout Christian Scientist who abstained from alcohol. The instability seemed to echo in her personal life. She married 5 times, with each relationship ultimately buckling under the unique pressures of Hollywood. Her partnership with Fred Astaire was also a source of constant public pressure. While their on-screen chemistry was magic, off-screen they were friendly colleagues, not lovers. Ginger spent her life fighting to be seen as an artist in her own right, separate from him. He was not my Svengali, she once stated firmly. I was my own woman. We were a team. The ultimate irony is that Ginger's strength became her burden. Her resilience and her refusal to back down were the very qualities that made her a star. But they were also the qualities that led the system, and some of her peers, to brand her and try to isolate her. The fallout wasn't a career collapse. She became one of the highest-paid actresses in Hollywood after her Oscar win. The fallout was the emotional cost of the fight, and the lonely reality that in a town built on illusion, being a strong, honest woman was the most difficult role of all. Decades passed. The golden age faded into memory. Ginger Rogers continued, conquering Broadway and television. She had survived. She had thrived. But she had not yet told her full story. Not in her own words. Then, in 1991, at the age of 80, she published Ginger, My Story. This was it. Her final word. Her last dance. The book was her chance to step out from behind the screen persona and speak directly to her audience. It was her chance, as she wrote, to set the record straight. The book isn't a bitter, score-settling mess. It's written in Ginger's breezy, energetic voice. But beneath the charm, the book is a masterclass in controlled confession. She doesn't need to scream, because the facts of her story are damning enough. Her real confession is that the Hollywood garden was full of snakes, and she was finally pointing them out. The confession is in the casual way she recounts being underpaid. It's in the matter-of-fact telling of her battles for better scripts. And it's in the calm, yet firm, way she details the open hostility from one of Hollywood's most revered actresses. The final confession is the cumulative weight of these stories. It's the revelation that her entire career was an act of defiance against a system, and people, designed to control and diminish her. Why did she wait so long? Perhaps she knew that in the thick of her career, such honesty would have been professional suicide. The difficult label would have become permanent. She had to play the game to win it. Only in the twilight of her life, with her legacy secure, could she finally lay all her cards on the table. Only then could she explain that her famous work ethic wasn't just about professionalism, it was a survival mechanism. She had to be twice as good to get half the respect. The memoir is also a love letter to the one person always in her corner, her mother, Lela. Lela emerges as Ginger's general and fiercest defender. Ginger's confession is also an acknowledgement that she was never truly alone in her fight. She was one half of a mother-daughter team that took on the Hollywood establishment and carved out a legendary career on their own terms. In the end, the story of Ginger Rogers is far more inspiring than the simple narrative of a dancer in a gown. Her life was a testament to the idea that true grace isn't just effortless movement, it's about enduring immense pressure without breaking. She wasn't just Fred Astaire's partner, she was a self-made star, a savvy businesswoman, and a quiet revolutionary who fought for her worth. Her final confession reframes her entire legacy. We no longer see just the glamour, but the grit. We see the cost of every perfect dance step and the battles behind every triumphant smile. The poisonous snake she spoke of wasn't just a metaphor. It was the studio that tried to underpay her, the media that tried to exploit her, and rivals who met her ambition with hostility. Ginger Rogers faced them all. She did it all backwards and in high heels, and built a fortress of talent and unshakable self-belief. She won the Oscar, she won the fight for respect, and in the end, she wrote her own story. She was, in every sense of the word, her own woman. What do you think was the biggest obstacle for Ginger Rogers? Was it the sexist studio system or a powerful rival like Katharine Hepburn? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe these hidden stories of Hollywood's greatest stars deserve to be told, please like this video and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching.